Hi, welcome to part 3 of Immunising Your Adopted Child Against the Primal Wound. So today I want to talk about something that happened a couple of months ago. So I was in a Facebook group, and it's mainly adoptees in this Facebook group, right? And a prospective adoptive parent had come into the group and made a comment saying that she was thinking about adopting a child. She'd come into the group to see, what what was going on for adopted adults, to put it briefly, right? And she said, very honest post. She said, I've been thinking about adopting. Me and my husband are thinking about adopting. But given all the darkness and trauma that seems to be in this group, we're not going to adopt. Or I think she said, we're having second thoughts, were her words. So what is it that's actually going on? Well, people that think the same seem to, there's a saying, isn't there? People flock together. I can't remember the exact saying. But birds with the same feathers flock together. I think that's it. So what happens is that people that are suffering tend to come together, congregate together. And what happens in these Facebook groups is that somebody says that they've got a problem in their life, and they say, has anybody else got the same problem? And everybody else jumps in and says, yes, I've got the same problem. So a mentor of mine, a guy called Richard Wilkins, check him out. He's a really great guy. Check him out on Facebook, Richard Wilkins. One of his favorite sayings is that encouragement does for people what helium does for balloons. And I love that, because I love lifting people. Hopefully my videos are uplifting. I am attempting. He lifted me up, did this guy Richard, and his partner Liz, and they continue to lift me up. And that's what inspired me to lift others. So encouragement lifts us. It lifts us, and we rise. Like a hot air balloon that is rising with that helium, and the world looks better. We get more perspective on life, don't we? As our mood lightens, as our mood rises, our layer of happiness rises, we see things differently. And that's what's going on for us, is our mood's going up and down all the day. Anyway, what's happening in these Facebook groups is that people are saying, people whose are in the baskets. That's what they call the thing that sits underneath the balloon. They're in the basket, and they're coming in there into these Facebook, and they're trying to rise. But what's actually happening is that all the other people in the Facebook group are throwing sandbags into the basket of the balloon, and that stops them lifting. That stops them rising. And there's more and more sandbags go in, and just bear with me on this metaphor. As those more and more sandbags go in, they actually take they take the balloon, the basket of the balloon, down. They hold it down, and if they were heavy enough, they'd start to actually embed it and take the balloon underneath the surface of the earth. So that's what validation does to us. Validation kind of feels good, but it keeps us stuck. Compare that to a coach. So a coach or a friend will challenge our thinking. Our friend will challenge our thinking. They'll empathize with us, and then they'll ask us a question. So the most important question, the most important statement of my life is when I was having this massive eruption of anger towards my birth mother. She didn't love me enough to keep me. She gave me the consolation prize. You heard me talking about that in the previous episode. And the woman I was with, lovely Sarah Kreutzer, she said, I don't think it was quite like that, Simon. Really gently. And I saw the truth in what she said. She challenged my take on reality with her take on reality. And it transpired that 8 years later, when I got all the adoption file and stuff, she was exactly right. That was the confirmation, the logical confirmation of something that I'd found out 8 years before. I'd seen the truth in what she said. And that was later confirmed by a letter from a letter from a birth mother that it wasn't written to me, but it was in this adoption file, and it was clear to me that she did love me. She loved me enough to put my needs in her world, right? She thought that she was doing the very best for me. The boyfriend that she'd been going out with for 5 months had said that he didn't want to have anything to do with the baby. In her opinion, in that time, she felt that it was the best thing to do for a baby to have two parents, and she was doing the best for me. She loved me enough. She loved me so much that it was bigger than her selfish care for herself, right? So there's a huge difference between validation and challenging. Now, what happens if you like? If I've been into these Facebook groups, and I asked a really gentle question of somebody, and they felt that I was invalidating their opinion, and I thought, oh, I've caused upset here. I apologized, and I tried to state where I was at, and then everybody came for me in this Facebook group, and I thought, what have I done? I don't want to upset anybody. This is a group for adoptees. I don't want to upset anybody. I was trying to really, really gently question. This post was full of darkness, and I was just wondering. I wonder if there's any light here. And this person felt that I'd invalidated them. The other people in the group thought I'd invalidated them. So I thought, I've got to delete this comment because I've caused, unwittingly, I've caused some upset here. And so I deleted the comment. And then there's another question. And just before I left the group, I thought, no, this isn't the group for me. Right? Just before I left the group, I saw this comment saying, this guy hasn't even got the courage of his own convictions to stay here and, justify his argument. I thought, well, you're not open to change. You're an adoptee. This group was for adoptees who were influencers. I thought, oh, these guys are going to be. They've come through this tricky stuff, like I've come through stuff, and they're looking to help everybody else. But they were clearly still so in their trauma that they couldn't see any. They were still in the dark. They couldn't see any light at all, and they were stuck. They were stuck in their story, and we're all stuck in our story to a lesser or greater extent. I get stuck in my story. So one of my things at the moment is that I'll be happier when I'm helping more people. I'll be happier when when I'm making a living out doing what I'm doing, rather than relying on income from other sources. I'll be happier when, and we're all living in that. We're all living in that idea to a lesser or greater extent, and we're stuck, So what these videos are about is hopefully to kind of just pull gently at the foundations of where people are stuck, because the freer we are, the freer the freer we are, the happier we are, the more conscious we are, the higher our mood is, the better that we're going to be for the people around us, especially if you've got kids. As Gandhi said, you want to be the change that you want to see in the world. So a lot of adoptive parents, a lot of parents think about that being a parent is about their parenting strategies, right? It's about the kid. Well, it's in any relationship, we can't change our kids. We can only change ourselves. I remember when I really saw this for the first time, it's probably about 12 years ago. And went on holiday, and we met this child psychologist, and she was Jewish, and she was telling the story about how her teenage kid had wanted a tattoo, and I don't know if you know, but Jews were tattooed in the concentration camps. They were tattooed to identify that they were Jewish. So tattoos are a big no-no on that basis, completely unsurprisingly. And this child psychologist had been unable to stop her own child having the tattoo done. And I just thought, isn't that proof that nobody can change anybody else's action? We have to we can only change ourselves. We can't change anybody else. So these videos are about immunizing your child against your adopted child against the primal wound. But this starts with you. This starts with you, and the extent to which you buy in to your child being destiny being determined by this primal wound theory. And I mean that theory. This is a theory from an adoptive mum. It's not the experience of an adopted person. So what's going on with adopted people? Well, again, in another Facebook group, I put on a quote, and I came up with this quote: adoption is something that happens to us. It doesn't define us. And I got 120 likes and 20 loves and 20 how dare yous. So what's the difference that makes the difference? How can something that happened, well, for me, 54 years ago, how can anything that happened in the past determine how we feel in the present? How can that be? How can a past event determine how we feel right now? There's only one thing here. It's how we think about that event, the meaning that we attach to that event, the meaning that we attach to them, that we're attaching to that event in this very moment. And you've seen that different people, we know this. You know this already. Different people attach different meanings to the same thing. So when I put that quote up, adoption is something that happens to us. It doesn't define us. We're not defined by our primal wound. 120 people liked it, 20 people loved it, and 20 people hated it and got very upset because of the meaning that they attached to their adoption. Now, I have attached bad meaning to being adopted in the past. I've shared this with you. So the meaning that we attach sometimes shifts. Yeah. So 1 minute, she didn't love me enough to keep me. The next minute, she did love me. She loved me enough to put my needs as she saw them in that moment first. Thanks a lot. See you again soon. Bye-bye.